Hello, Mike Jackson speaking, and I'm just about to put together a tutorial on this little street scene. It's very simple, just basically a tonal painting, um, a couple of colours and a few characters. So I always like to start off with a simple thumbnail sketch, which I put there, which just shows the composition and some shadows and maybe where the characters would go, but that's not written in stone. So let's get on with the project, and here we have my scene sketched out, and I'm going to mix a few greys up. I'm going to try and create like a misty scene where aerial perspective is heavier at the bottom of the scene than it is at the top, and I'll just give you that mistiness. Whereas normally, if we were going to paint a nice summer's day, we'd paint dark blue at the top, getting lighter at the bottom. But this way, we're going to make it much more different, quite a moody painting. So it's going to be lighter at the top, and as we move down to the bottom, we're going to add more and more pigment, which is going to make it a little bit darker, which is going to create that illusion of a misty scene. As you can see by the colours that I'm mixing warm colours and cool colours. I like to mix it up really, so it doesn't it doesn't get boring. It's better than just adding one straight flat colour. It's just those tiny little variations that make the difference in a painting. It stops the eye from becoming bored as it looks down or around the painting. So that's why we add different tones, warms and cools. So as we move down here, I've got a canopy on the left hand side. I just accidentally went over the part that I shouldn't have done. So just my trusty handkerchief was always there to help me. So it just lifts out bits of pigment. I'm using a lovely paper at the moment. It's from Clairefontaine and it's called Flamboyant, and it's got the most deepest um, texture that you can imagine. It's almost like anaglypse wallpaper. Brilliant, fantastic for painting on. I also use a little spray bottle, and it just keeps the painting alive, keeps the paint wet, which allows stuff to just to take place on its own, and it creates soft edges where I want soft edges. So you control the way it flows rather than wetting the whole paper and you're completely at the mercy of your paint. Then with this you can just spray where you want it to be sprayed and make soft edges and hard edges as you want. So I've just added a little bit of green to this paint now, just to give it a little bit more warmth. There'll be shadows on this side, so that's why I want to emphasize the warmth there. So I've got three little characters in the center, and they're just like in the distance. I like to, when I'm putting characters together, I like to put the heads more or less at the same size. That's how to do it really. Otherwise, you look like you've got giants in your pictures and so on and so forth. So if you have the heads more or less at the same height, you can define which one's a child as opposed to which one is not, and it's just a very small person. So this way, it just fools the mind really into and knowing which is what. This white area on your right hand side, that's going to be a poster which is going to be on the wall, so I'm leaving that white, and a few points of interest Now I want to have a lovely warm canopy here, so just adding a little bit of red to this and to this chap's coat here. I'm painting on the left hand side, most pigment on the left, because the shadow is coming from the right, so I want a bit of a highlight on the right. But at this stage, everything I paint is going to basically fall back into the background anyway, and just be an undercoat, just to be like an underpainting for the real stuff. So it's not a problem if you don't get it right. So what I want now is all these colours to blend into each other and just create a point of interest to the left hand side. And I don't know if you've noticed this, but I'm using what you call the magic proportions, where it's almost like the rule of thirds, but it's much bit more precise than the rule of thirds. So my characters are, and the points of interest are going to be almost to the left of the centre of that painting. It's called the Fibonacci numbers. Bit technical, but there you go. And it should create a nice balance. I was just a bit tempted to paint at the top then, but I just don't think it's dry enough. It'll just completely run at that side, because that's where the sun is shining on, creating a silhouette. I don't want that to be soft, I want that to be quite sharp, as opposed to this side at the right hand side. The light is blowing over that side there, so I want a nice soft edge. So we've got a building here on your right hand side, which is just creating some shadows. Just creating some points of interest here where that big bead of colour is just waiting there, just waiting to run down at its own will. Give me a vertical line, which I don't really want. So I'm just chancing it at the moment. What I will do in a few seconds, I'll get the board and I'll tip it to the left and run that bead off to the edge of the painting. I mean, I could pick it out with a bit of blotting, a bit of handkerchief or a dry brush, but I think I'm going to use that pigment, keep it in the picture. There we go, just leave it, let it run into that part there. Right, and at this point, it's good to just take a step back and watch it dry. There you go. Right, so that's dried up. And I can now put the next stage in. So creating some more greys. I'm using a size 14 brush. It's a little bit more detailed rather than the big mop brush. But I'm going to create some, your best greys you can get are your mixture of three primaries. So it's red, blue and yellow. And a bit more red for a warm colour, or a bit blue for a cooler colour. So I've just put a bit of yellow in there.
Now starting from the left, I'm still referring to my thumbnail drawing to give me an idea of where to paint. So this nice sharp building on the left side. See these shadowed buildings now. I'll make this a little bit warmer now. Add a bit of a warmer colour to it. See a bit of burnt sienna. And you don't notice it so much when it's wet, but once that dries, you'll have these lovely warm tones. But these shadowed buildings now will actually define where that canopy is. And I've got some receding buildings here to the right of that roof and to the right of the canopy. These buildings are a little bit, this paint is a little bit lighter, a little bit more water in there. Notice I'm not covering up every single part of that. I'm letting little sparkles develop. Now this like a dome at the back, or a cathedral, church, or wherever you want it to be, that is quite loose. I want that nice misty, so I'm going to add a bit of spray to that to soften the edges. You've got to be careful not to spray it too close to it, because it'll just push your paint across your picture. Let it just fall and land on it, and just let the paint do the work for you. As I'm painting this part, all the part at the top will start to just soften as it dries. Just add a bit of water to that. Always handy to have a little sponge nearby, and you can just wipe off any excess water. When it's like this, it's very good. You can add different colours to it, and I like to put a bit of purple in the background there. So with this paint, I'm just defining the characters. Just define them. Run that out and just pick up that bit of extra paint before it runs away with me. You can't do it with a bone dry brush. It has to be a brush which is damp. Just going on the characters. I've got a mother and father and a child here. A child in between. You see how that, because that's much lighter, that pigment is starting to dry, get lighter as it dries out, and it's a little bit softer. It looks like it's receding. It's proper in the right in the background there. There's a character as well to the right. Now then, let's put that shadow, a really sharp shadow there. You need a steady hand for that, don't you?
So we've got the shadow on the right hand side underneath that canopy, and these people, these characters are going to be fetching the shadows into that. I've painted across the bottom part of these people because I just want the top parts of their body to be showing and the rest of it to be in shadow. This is a car. Just drawing that. That's just indicating where it is at the moment. Now we have a bit of structure, a bit of architecture on your right hand side. Just defining that poster here. We'll have a canopy there as well. It just gives it a bit of balance really, so it looks more like a high street now, doesn't it? We just make this stuff up as we go along, won't we? Right, let's start about this shadow here. Let's try and get this. Sometimes it's that shadow that actually brings it together. Try and get a nice shape in it. Nice and heavy down the bottom. It's lovely. See how the contrast is at the bottom with this very cool shadows, with those warm shadows in the back. And that's just grey. They're just greys. It's amazing what you can pull together with just greys. Right, I'll leave this one to dry, and then we'll go for the final layer. Is put some details in. Have a cup of tea first. Right, so I'm using a finer brush now. I'm using one brush to put the paint on another one to create a bit of a blend. So I'm just adding water to the right hand side. So we'll have a stripy canopy. The red that I use is cadmium red. It's just off screen at the moment in one of the other palettes. I've got, I think, about 3 palettes that I'm using at the same time. Don't need that many. Really don't need that many. I'm just greedy. Right, now, so add a darker colour here. And this is a bit of Prussian blue with a bit of burnt sienna. Just saying there's no real definition here to his trousers, but the important part is just to get those shadows. See him so he's sat there on the floor. So he's standing on the floor. So I'm making a mix of rose madder, opera rose like a pink for the face, and with a bit of Naples yellow for the face. And it goes on quite dark, but it does brighten up after a while. And it gives a lovely skin colour. So now the decision is what colours to do the other characters. I'm going to do this lady's dress. Just define his arm there. Dropped a bit of water on the paste there, so quick mop that up. Otherwise I'll end up with a cauliflower. We don't want that. And now let's a bit of shadow. And just because her feet are a little bit higher than his, it makes her look like she's walking at the back of him rather than being arm in arm. Just blending that colour over now. So we're getting a little bit of a light action on the right side of their bodies as we can see it. Now these characters, I'm thinking I'm putting those walking away from them, so I'm just going to have it like a contre-jour thing where it's like they're looking into the light of it. So their shadows are just what's defining them. We'll still have the gradients in those shadows. And sometimes it's just that little shadow underneath that brings it all together, isn't it? Put that there, just go back. Character there, let's have that as a blue. So we've got all the primaries there. We've got the red and the yellow and the blue, and it just looks nice. There's only a little bit of colour. I mean, that colour is really just in the central field of this painting at the moment, and it looks all right. Just thinking of how to do this cat at the moment, because it is in shadow, so we shouldn't really be much colour to that. So let's just make that. It's towards us, so we don't want red lights. Give it a bit of blending. making this canopy under there now a little bit darker and soft. Just put a couple of details on these buildings here now. Nice and loose. We'll just put a couple of downward stripes on that part there. Put a lamp post here, I think. I'll put that lamp in front of this canopy. It just breaks that up a little bit. Someone's been advertising on there. So windows. Little bits of just little bits of marks here, there, and everywhere. And it just brings it all together then. And the final bit, sign your name. So now we'll take away the paper, which has been holding it down. And then things always look a little bit better with a bit of a whiteboard around it. See the detail there now. And this is the finished article framed up. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this, and I hope you can rewatch this and paint along with me for the next one. Thank you very much indeed. Bye.